Well, I'm going to suggest that we make our way out to the motor car.
See you next week.
Hi, Bob. The what?
Did Central have a turntable?
Yes, but I have the feeling it was gone even before the turn of the 20th century, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, so an old survey from the courthouse.
Yeah, and you know what's amazing? This town is not flat by any means. I don't even know where it could have been. I don't know how they would have had all those engine facilities. Of course, in those days, the track was probably about 4 feet lower than it is now.
All right, so folks that are online, how's it sounding? Never mind, I'm not turning my volume up on this.
Yeah, man, that sun is so low.
No, we're fine.
It'll be all right.
Yeah, but I need you over there by Mac.
It's.
Well, sure, be obstinate, Bob.
So I want I'm just myself and then here at the Central Railway Museum, located in the beautiful upstate of South Carolina. And now I would like to introduce our presenter.
There's Mac.
Hey, good evening. I originally planned to make my presentation inside first and then come out and demonstrate the motor car. My wife said, you know, depending on how long you yak, you may not have any daylight left for the demonstration. So I decided to do it first. So this behind me here is my Fairmont Railway Motors M19 motor car that came off the Southern Railway. And I bought it in 1991 and have been operating it ever since, various railroads across the Southeast. What I'd like to do is just show you some of the features, and then we're going to crank it up and let you hear it run, show you how you have to crank it up. Go around here. I'm going to turn on the lights. I'm going to put the jumper wire in that I removed here. There's an automatic brake light that flashes here. So every time I apply the brakes, this light comes on and flashes. That is something that I had to add to meet the NARCOA requirements. Down below here, you've got two small tail lights that are underneath this red shield here. And then if you look at the front of the car, you'll see one single headlight. That's basically back. Additional light as a strobe on the roof. That's on there for safety. And I've had to add some modifications to this car to meet NARCOA requirements. One of those is an audible warning device, either a horn or a bell. Well, I chose to put a bell on it. This is a fire alarm bell. Actually, it functions 3 different ways, depending on what I select. Number one, I can push this button over here. The bell will sound like this. I use that just like a horn on a train. If we're getting ready to roll, you get the blast of the bell. We're going to move. Once we start moving, we have this mode. This is this bell is on anytime we're going down the track and there's any people around. Warn them that you're coming. Then I have this mode. That's if there's somebody walking down the track with their back to me and they won't get off of the track, I hit that mode. And that will make no noise. That's say, gotta get out of the way. I ain't stopping unless I have to. Anyway, those are the features of this motor car. These seats on this motor car did not come on the car. Southern Railway bought this motor car in 1967. Not include this roof or the windshield or these seats, whereas it was an open car. Because Southern Railway decided to build their own roof and windshield. And I believe that these seats were salvaged out of Southern Railway steam locomotives. I don't have any way to prove that, but I've seen some photographs of the interior of a steam locomotive cab, and I've seen seats that are very similar to this. And they fold down like this. This motor car will run in either direction. If you're going backwards, sometimes it's better to sit on this seat facing that way than to sit in the seat this way and you can't see where you're going. You can also sit in the motor car, what we call the motor box. Sometimes when I'm going backwards, I'm just sitting right here, but I can sit there. Okay, now, they're lucky to get this car to fire up. Before I fire it up, let's know that it has single cylinder, water cooled engine, 2 cycles. Which means you have to mix the gas and the oil together. And I'll explain later on when we go into the presentation why it's a 2-cycle engine. So with a little luck, we get this thing cranked up. You have to manually crank it with this crank right here. Insert it over here. Controls are all right here. They're all hand controlled. We're not here at the front. All the way forward, all is basically closed or almost closed. I'll let the engine get back like this. This lever right here sets timing. I'll explain why you need that later on in the presentation. This lever right here is the brake lever. Put the brakes on, you pull it back, there's a notch where you can set this brake lever. Our code requires that setting in the first notch, the car cannot roll. You never use the second notch. This right here is a clutch. Wiggle belt, PELT, but it's actually a clutch. I'll explain later. How's it going? Ring the bell. Here we go. Back. What I did just then was reverse the engine. The engine is now running back. I'll explain why that's necessary a little later on to go in. Up here is a tow bar. Norco requires that we have a tow bar. So in case we're on a run with a bunch of other cars and our car breaks down, We can't just sit there and try to work on it. We gotta hook up to the car in front of us and keep moving. And when we have a break, we can try to work on the problem and get it fixed. But the tow bar I keep up here, it also serves as another hand as well. In that box over there, which I have a lock on right now, there's a fire extinguisher and a first aid kit. Those are required by NARCOA as well. You have any questions about anything I've pointed out so far? If not, let's go inside. Let's get the presentation. Thank you. I might
Yeah,
point out
thanks.
one other thing I forgot. These devices on the front right here in front of the wheels are rail sweeps. Such things as rocks, spikes, or debris can derail this car. So we put these down, they retract like this, and I put it on the trailer. Put those down, that knocks off any debris that might cause the car to derail. So they're called rail sweeps.
If it does derail, it looks like you got built-in handles to pick it up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How much does this,
We get this car off and on track. Well, see these extension handles right here? Pull out. When I was a young man, I could pick the end of this car up. The front axle was split, so the front wheels turn independently. Act as a pivot point. I could pick this up, just swing it around at a railroad crossing, set it on the track. I can't do it now, too old, weak.
how much does it
I
weigh,
got
man?
I really don't know. I'd guess it weighs about 1,000 pounds. The other end is the heavy end. That's where the engine is. Going. Notice there's a hitch on the rear and on the front. That's NARCOA requirement. So in case we break down on a run, we use our tow bar to hook up to the next car and keep moving.
You want to explain what our code is?
Yeah, we'll do that when we get inside. Okay, let's go inside. Right,
Oh, that, yes, yes, exactly. You're incoming, yes. Yes, very dangerous, yes. Yes, I know, I'm so great.
Oh, you mean foamers?
Foamers, yes.
You've heard that,
Not foamers, yes.
you've heard that term.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Yes.
Yeah. Foamers.
You guys could hear that out there.
Thanks, I missed the train show this year, but hopefully I'll make it next year.
Yeah,
Sounds like y'all had a good turnout.
yeah. I don't think it actually set a record, but it was so evenly divided between the 2 days.
Slow, I don't know why he needs the bell.
Yeah, that's what I said to Harrison, that they can't hear him coming.
Yeah.
Did you want to start with Mac? A slideshow presentation and I'll call for the slides and just.
Hey, I'm gonna sit back
Okay,
there.
one question that was asked outside, and I deferred it till we get in here because of the noise out there. It might be a little hard to hear. What is NARCOA? NARCOA. That's the North American Rail Car Operators Association.
You might want to put him on the video.
All right, North American Rail Car Operators Association, this is an organization that was formed back in the late eighties, early nineties, just for this hobby. The railroads started scrapping their motor cars back in the eighties and nineties, because they didn't need them anymore, because they started using trucks with retractable railroad wheels. You may have seen them, they're called high railers. So they're a lot more versatile because they're on either on the highway or on the railroad track. So the railroad started buying those. Now they got all these motor cars they've had for years. What are they doing with them? They're scrapping them. Well, people like me and others said, wait a minute, don't scrap that thing, I want to buy it. And they said, we don't know what you're gonna do with it, other than put it in your front yard. If you won't buy it, we'll sell it to you. How much you want for that one? $200. There's the money. The car that I just showed you out there, I'm the third owner. I bought it from the guy that bought it from the Norfolk Southern Roadway shop in Charlotte, North Carolina. Sometime in the late eighties, I don't know the exact year. He paid $200 for that car and they gave him a spare engine. He used that car for a couple of years, took his family on some trips up the South Carolina Railroad Museum. They could have cared less about it, they didn't like it. He decided he didn't want it, so he put it up for sale. I found out about it. I bought that car and I paid him $400. So he doubled his money and I got the spare engine as well. So anyway, that's how I acquired that car in 1991. I joined Narco and realized that if I wanted to take it on Narco excursions, I had to do these modifications to it, which I pointed out there. These devices right here are handy to have. This is a wheel gauge that measures or shows you the profile of the wheel. Here's where the flange is. You lay this on the wheel and it shows you if your wheels and flanges are within tolerance. If they are out of tolerance, they could be unsafe, which could lead to a derailment. These are calipers right here. You have to measure the thickness of the wheel tread. There has to be a minimum thickness in order to run on the Norco excursion. So what you do is you put this on the wheel, and there's a dial here that reads out how thick it is in inches. So that's what these tools are for. Why do you need motor cars in the first place? Well, railroads 150 years ago, I don't think we can go back 200 years, but almost. They were divided up into something called sections, which was a length of track, maybe 8, 10, 12 miles in length, different railroads, the section was a different length. And there was a group of people who were hired by the railroad, and their job was to maintain that section of track. So they would have to take a pump car or a hand car, I think you know what I'm talking about. See if you can pull up a slide of the pump car. I know there's one that Brian sent me that is actually a frame. Doesn't have any wooden deck on it yet. Somebody's in the process of building it.
Was that one of the slideshows?
No, that's what you got by email.
Yeah.
There should be, there's 4 pictures on there, and one of them is a pump car.
It's, they, let me start the.
It's not on the Narco website, it's attached to your email that you got. Anyway, this is a pump car, it's a hand car. You get on there, 4 guys, and you pump this handle up and down, it makes the car go. Well, if you had to go out and work on the track and you had to pump that thing for 10 miles, can you imagine your physical condition when you got there? You're worn out. You can't hardly do any work. So the foreman said, I'm responsible for this. I'm responsible for these guys. We got to do something. So gasoline engines started being perfected back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so these section foremen would buy a gasoline engine out of their own pocket and mount it on the pump car and get rid of this mechanism here. And the guys would then ride to the work site with a gasoline engine. That's the only way the section foreman could get any work out of these people. So that's why they needed motor cars in the first place. Sometimes you had to take track material, joint bars, bolts, nuts, washers, cross ties, sometimes even rail. So there were little trailer cars that were available that you could hitch behind the motor car and you could pull that material out to the work site. There's three basic sizes of motor cars. There's the inspection car. You know, here's the pump car being assembled. A few years ago, there was a company, there's what one looks like. And that's something else, that's a velocipede there. That is a person-powered device that has three wheels on it. This will get you down the track fairly fast. But with three wheels, how stable do you think that thing is?
Don't tip it.
You can, yeah, you get something and it can turn sideways real easy and derail, so. You took your life in your hands, I think, when you tried to pump a velocipede down the track. Four wheels are better than three, versatility. Okay. There's three basic sizes of motor cars. The car that I showed you out here tonight is an inspection car. It was designed to take two people comfortably, or four people if you didn't mind being sort of scrunched up. And the purpose of that car was to go down the track and inspect the track to make sure that everything looks okay. And if you saw a defect, you may have had a capability of making a minor repair. You had a few tools with you. And then you stop, I see a loose bolt, you'll stop and tighten it up. Also, that car was used by someone called a signal maintainer. This is the person responsible for going down the track and checking all the signals, replacing burned out bulbs, stopping at the little buildings or the little boxes that control signals and going in there and testing things to make sure that it worked. Signal maintainer car. Now, if you had to go out down the track and take some track materials with you, the little inspection car was probably too underpowered to pull very much behind it. So you had a larger car with a larger engine. That was called a section car. And that would take anywhere from 2 to 6 people on it. Plus it'd pull a trailer or two behind it. If you really had some heavy repairs, you would get something called a gang car. A gang car had a 4-cylinder gasoline engine in it. And the gang car could carry 8 people sitting side by side on the motor boxes. 4 of them facing out this way, 4 of them facing out the other way. If you really had a large gang, you could add running boards to that gang car. You could get 8 more people on that car. So we could carry a total of 16 people on the gang car. And that gang car could pull 5 or 6 loaded trailer cars behind it. With that 4-cylinder engine is pretty powerful. I one time had 4 Fairmont A4 gang cars that had a Ford 4-cylinder, 134 cubic inch gasoline engine. It had a 4-speed transmission. The reverse came in the rear axle. It had a forward position and a rear position, which meant that I could go 4 forward speeds and 4 reverse speeds. Well, that car weighed about 4,000 pounds. Didn't have lift handles, or it had some, but nobody can pick that thing up. So you either left it on the track all the time, or you had some kind of special means of getting that big heavy car on and off the track. So inspection cars, section cars, and gang cars. Well, who manufactured these? Well, in the beginning, when the section foremen started using gasoline engines, manufacturers of some other rail equipment said, look at that, they're putting gasoline engines on there, and let's start doing that. So they looked around for somebody to either supply them with an engine or they designed their own engine. Now, what I couldn't demonstrate for you, since the car was not on level ground up here, it was on a slope. If I had let the brakes off, it would have took off right down the hill. But that car out there is belt driven. the motor, the engine has a pulley on it, and there's a pulley on the rear axle. The belt is loose. When you want to go, you push that lever that I said was the clutch. And another idler pulley tightens the belt. And when the belt starts to tighten up, then you start moving. Okay? Now, why is it a two-cycle engine? Well, there's no transmission on that car. It's belt drive. Think about it. Engine's turning this way. Means the rear axle will turn this way. What if you needed to go this way? There's no transmission. There's no reverse gear. A two-cycle engine will run in either direction, depending on the setting of the timing. So that car, I can crank the engine backwards, I can crank it forward. When I stop and it's going forward, if I kill the ignition and I look down through a couple of slots, a flywheel, when that flywheel gets to a certain speed, I can throw the ignition back on and it'll kick over in the opposite direction after I reset the timing lever. So it's unique. Now, there's no transmission. So when you want to go and you push the lever to tighten the belt, it's like starting a car, a straight drive car in high gear. You ever tried to do that? If you try to start a straight drive car in high gear, it's probably going to do what to the engine? Choke it down, because it's not designed for that. This motor car, you learn how to start that car without choking the engine. You engage the belt a little bit, and the engine starts to bog down, you let off on it. The engine comes back up to speed, you give it a little more belt. And you keep doing that until you finally get to the point where you can lock the belt in position when you're going down the track. Everybody understand that? A two-cycle car is very difficult to learn to operate properly. A lot of people have gotten into this hobby over the years, and they bought some motor car without really not understanding what they were buying. They got a two-cycle car, joined our car, tried to go on an excursion, it was a total disaster. You have to have a mechanical knack. You have to understand how everything works. You have to have some electrical knowledge, because there's a lot of wiring on that car. A lot of things that I showed you operate with electricity. So unless you have a knack for mechanical devices and a knack for electricity, you will be a failure if you buy one of those cars and you try to operate it. Over the years, I have seen people join Narco, and usually husbands and wives. Oh, isn't that cute? Let's get us one of those and start doing that. Well, if the guy knows about mechanical and electrical stuff, they're fine. But if he doesn't, he'll sell that car within a year or two, but he just can't get the hang of it. Narco recognized this. So they started something called a mentoring program. If you want to join Narco and get a motor car and go on Narco sponsored excursions, you have to be mentored first after you pass a written exam on the rule book. The rule book. You are required to have a copy of the current rule book in your possession at all times when you're running your motor car. The mentoring is there to let the operator demonstrate to an experienced person that's a member of Narco who has passed some tests to be a mentor. Demonstrates to that person that you know what you're doing. You know how to operate the car. You know the safety things that you're supposed to do. And once the mentor, the guy that's doing the mentoring is satisfied, he'll say, fine, okay. And you get on your rule book card an M after your number. You're assigned a number, an M, which indicates that you were mentored. Back when I came along, they didn't have a mentoring program. So they did something called grandfathering me. I was grandfathered in. So, but it took me a while to learn to operate that car. Where did I learn? I learned at the South Carolina Railroad Museum in near Winsboro. They've got a 11-mile track. Learned how to operate the car down there. And then when we moved up to the upstate, I was a member of the Greenville chapter of National Railway Historical Society. They bought a motor car at my suggestion. Jim Hopkins, that you mentioned, was the keeper of that car. And we got permission to run on about 2.5 miles of track from the Carolina Piedmont Railroad, right there near the Greenville downtown airport. So I take my motor car over there on Saturday, and Jim would bring the chapter car, and anybody else that had a car that wanted to come, we operate back and forth on about 2 miles of track, and that's where I learned operating too. But now it's all hack. When I get on there, done it so much that it just comes automatically. Today, I couldn't get the car cranked. It'd been sitting in my garage all winter in my basement. There and tried to crank it. Wouldn't fire. Okay, what's wrong? What does it take for an engine to run? It takes fuel, it takes air, and it takes spark ignition. Check the spark, got spark, it's got air, must not have any fuel. For some reason, I wasn't getting any flow out of the tank down to the carburetor. So I've separated the fuel line where there's a inline fuel filter. Fuel came out of the filter and said it's getting that far, so I plugged it back in. And then just took the spark plug out, poured some fuel in the cylinder, poured some fuel on the spark plug, put it back in, cranked it over, and it fired a few times. But more importantly, the vibration of those, the few times it fired was enough to shake loose whatever was blocking the fuel flow in the carburetor. So after that, it fires up. I'm really proud when I go out there and the car cranks up with one pull, which it did tonight. The only reason it did that is I had it running later on, so it's in the unloaded up here, I cranked it up. As long as you got a little heat in the engine, it'll crank up real easily. If it's cold, I've been on some motor car excursions and New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. Sometimes I'd have to look up to the car in front of me and I'd put Tony. Till you get enough vibration and enough things limbered up in there from shaking, and then the engine would fire up and run, and I broke my belt, which meant I'm running, stop. I've already been over the need for motor cars. I've been over some of the types. Who manufactures motor cars, or who did manufacture motor cars? Nobody manufactures them today. My car was made by Fairmont Railway Motors in Fairmont, Minnesota. And I would say they were the largest manufacturer. They purchased a company called Kalamazoo back in the 50s. They made motor cars. Later on, a company called Harsco, Harsco, bought Fairmont. Fairmont merged with Tampa Corporation. It has a big plant in Columbia out there near the airport. So then it became Fairmont Tampa, a division of Harsco Corporation. Then there are other minor makers like Fairbanks Morse, and then some Canadian manufacturers called Beaver. They make cars. But Beaver cars are really unique in that the fact they're all hydraulically operated. There's a 3-cylinder diesel engine that turns a hydraulic pump. And then there's a hydraulic motor on the axles. To go, you just engage some levers and send fluid to the motor on the axle and it goes. The car has disc brakes. All things. Okay. What about operating on the railroad? Years ago, it was decided that railroad motor cars do not have the right of way at highway crossings. Okay. Well, what causes the lights to flash and the gates to come down at the railroad crossing? Continuity between the two rails. The rails are insulated from each other. When you put a locomotive on those rails, it creates a circuit from one rail to the other through the wheels and axles. That is what causes the lights to begin flashing and the gates to come down. Well, the motor cars were not allowed to do that. So my motor car has insulated wheels, it has insulated brakes. So we do not activate signals of any kind. Block signals, crossing signals, we are invisible to those signal systems. So therefore, to be safe on narcotic excursions, we have to be prepared to stop at every railroad crossing and look and see if it's clear in both directions before we go across that crossing. When I'm driving a car, you drive it from the left side. Locomotive, you drive it from the right side. The motor car is just like an automobile, you drive it from the left side. The person that's riding with me has been assigned to look to the right to see if there's any cars coming. I look to the left. He yells out, clear right or stop. I yell out, clear left or stop. And then once the traffic is cleared, then we can go across. Some of you have ridden with me on these excursions before, Chevy says, and a few other people over the years I've taken them. Is what I'm telling you true? Sometimes we come to a diagonal crossing where I'm facing this way, the crossing is like this, the track is like this, and here's a highway. Well, I got to operate these controls. I can't turn around and look back there. So I tell the guy that's riding with me, you look left. So he'll turn around and look to the left, and I'll look right. So then you got to realize you got to say clear left, and I say clear right before we go across, or stop if there's somebody coming. So you have to do that. The most number of incidents that we have had on narco excursions have been, what do you think? What would you guess? This is the most numerous incident that we have had. Rear end collisions. Operating a railroad motor car is unlike any automobile or vehicle you operate on the highway. When you can lock the brakes, and you'll do what? You'll slide down the track. If that track is wet, or if you just went through a flange greaser that puts grease on the flanges, you'll slide a lot further. So you have to anticipate having to slow down and stop before you get there. If you don't, you'll slam right into the car in front of you. We run at restricted speed, which means you run at a speed which allows you to stop within 1/2 of your sight distance. If you see the car in front of you is 100 feet away, you've got to figure out, okay, I got to stop within 50 feet. When you go around a curve and the car in front of you is out of sight, what are you supposed to do? Slow down, because he could be stopped around there. Now he's supposed to get off and send the guy, the rider, back with a flag to wave. Stop, we're stopped up here, down this curve. We're required to carry 2 flags, 16 by 16 inches minimum, either red or orange. The guy that rides with me is my flagger. I cannot flag and operate the controls safely. So the other guy does the flagging. The flag is actually the secondary warning device. Primary warning device I demonstrated out there was the flashing red brake light. You see that red light come on in the car in front of you, it means that they're putting their brakes on. You better think about putting your brakes on too. Then you stick the flag out, just in case somebody's not watching. Stick the flag out. If you're going to stop, the car in front of you is stopped. Wave the flag like this up and down, which means the car behind you, we're stopping. Any questions about operation of these?
The exhaust timing seemed to vary. A good part of the time it was even and it was just bang, 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 bang. And every so often it was bang, 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 bang. What's the cause of that? Why does it change?
That is a characteristic of a 2-cycle. Familiar with what's called a hit or miss engine. This is an engine that has flywheels on it, and you crank it up. And it's a 4-cycle engine. It only runs in one direction. But it has a governor on there and some other devices that only allow it to fire if it needs to. So it may fire one time if the load that it's connected to is very light. And it may turn several times around before it fires again. Well, that old two-cycle engine was acting sort of like that, but it's not a hit or miss engine, but it's similar. It's similar.
Who makes the bigger cars that has like 5 seats in the, like the main man Marco?
The big gang cars, most of the ones you'll see are A3 cars, A4, A5, A6, A7, and A8. As the number goes up, the car gets bigger. They're made by Fairmont. Beaver in Canada made either 4-man cars or 8-man cars. Those are all hydrostatic drivers. There's also a outfit from Canada named Woodings, Woodings. Woodings used a 4-cycle engine, but used a snowmobile drive with a variable ratio pulley that snowmobiles have. And I never had a Woodings car, I never wanted a Woodings car. Now, here's what Fairmont did back in the, I don't know, mid-80s, I guess it was, or maybe mid-70s, I say mid-70s. The 2-cycle engine is very simple. The ignition is the same ignition coil as on a Model T Ford. Okay? Very simple. The instruction manual for that car is telling the operator if it's a winter time, you drain the water cooler. The water cooling on there is no water pump. It's all done by convection. A little radiator on top. When I'm running full blast for a few hours, or an hour or two, that car will start steaming. Steam will start coming out of the radiator up there. That's normal. But they're supposed to drain the water out in the wintertime, keep the thing from freezing. Well, you know, when a guy gets to the end of the shift and it's 10 degrees out there, what does he want to do? He wants to get home as quick as he can. Leave that car with the water in it. It's designed so that the water hopper in that thing has tapered sides. So if water froze to ice, what would it do? It'll just creep up the sides. It wouldn't crack the block. Because Fairmont knew these guys aren't going to read the instructions. They're not going to drain the car. The timing and all, the dwell time on the spark coil is supposed to be within certain parameters, and you're supposed to keep that adjusted. The guy going to adjust the timing. So that car was designed so it runs okay on a variety of time set. It doesn't matter. Just get it close. What about the gap on the spark plug and the gap on the spark coil? Yeah, get it close. So I'm telling you, it was a simply designed drive system. It required very little maintenance to operate properly.
Was the coolant raw water so it would evaporate?
The coolant,
Steam off?
plain water, you could put some antifreeze in there if you wanted to.
That would inhibit the evaporation or boiling, right? Might not cool as well. Do you carry water with you?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
to refill?
I got a gallon of water up there, it sits under the feet almost of the person that's riding with me. And when we stop, we don't stop for lunch. One of the things I do is check the water, and if it needs water, I'll pour some in there. And if I use all the water I've got, I'll start looking around for a spigot. See if I can find one, and refill that water jug. We carry spare gasoline and oil's already mixed up. I mix 1 quart of 2-cycle oil, which I buy by the gallon at Walmart, Supertech. It's called water cool. I forget what it's called. But I put 1 quart of that oil in 5 gallons of non-ethanol gas. And I've been running that mixture for years and the car runs perfectly. If you ask Fairmont if you can do that, they'll say no. You're supposed to run SAE 30 weight oil. You're supposed to put 1 pint in 1 gallon of gasoline. The reason they say that is they have not tested any of what you're doing. And they don't want any liability in case you burn your engine up. So they tell you, you do what's published. It has a nameplate on there, it tells you what the mixture ought to be. Well, I've been doing this other one for years, it works just fine. In the mid-70s, I guess people complained about the two-cycle engine. It's cold weather, they're hard to start, you gotta prime them like I did today, you gotta put some gas in the cylinder and all that kind of stuff. So Onan, O-N-A-N, just happened to have a two-cycle, or a two-cylinder, four-cycle air-cooled engine that they use for generator applications. Somebody at Fairmont said, hey, that looks like a good engine to replace this old two-cycle engine. So they checked it out and they started buying Onan two-cylinder gasoline engines, four-cycle, and installing them on there. In addition, they put a transmission in there, it's two-speed, low and high, and then forward and reverse, and it has a clutch. It's like an automobile. And that clutch is either hand operated or can be foot operated. Well, the Onan engine turned out to be a misapplication. Because the Onan engine was designed to do what? Turn a generator at a constant speed, constant RPM. In the motor car, you've got a throttle to rev the engine up and down depending on what you need it to do. Onan engines were almost a disaster. I won't go as far as say they're a disaster, but I have learned that if somebody were to give me a motor car with an Onan engine in it, I would sell it as quick as I could. But they love it. People love it. People don't have a whole lot of aptitude, mechanical stuff. Onan engine allows you to get in there and crank it by turning the key. Key crank. It breaks down. It's got a chain drive. It's got a transmission. The majority of the time I have been held up on narco excursion is because some Onan powered car is causing problems. The two-cycle cars, people know what they're doing, they just keep on going. We just sit there patiently waiting. Get that car off the track. Put it behind that car. Let's get it on. Speaking of going to the bathroom, a lot of excursion coordinators have learned that if they're in charge of an excursion, they will run a potty car. It's a little trailer car with a porta potty strapped down. Because a lot of people that go on these excursions are women. Because either like trains, because they're going with their husband, you know. So they have to go to the restroom a lot more often, it seems like, than guys do. You know, if we happen to break down out in the woods somewhere and stop, you know, you guys jumping off cars, moving down the woods left and right, and women are just sitting there. We're gonna get next break. Well, a potty car will solve that problem. One time we were on an excursion and someone was in the potty car, she didn't hear him say, we're getting ready to go. They started up and going down the track, she's still in the potty. Anyway, somehow somebody heard her yell at the back on the door, she opened the doors.
Well, that smoke bat run, you know, they warned everybody in that full brochure thing said, if you get off the weed, watch the rattlesnake.
Oh, yeah.
So nobody's running, you know.
Anyway, that's just some of the funny things that's happened on these excursions. And we have had derailments. We have had cars, for whatever reason, go off the track. And depending on how fast you're going, that can be pretty serious. Two things that NARCOA does not require. Number one is a radio, but they strongly encourage radios. I never put a radio on my car because you heard the noise. How can I hear anything? Even with headphones on, I can't hear what they're saying. If I try to say something and all I can hear in the background is what? So I never had a radio. So I had been barred from one guy's excursions because I don't have a built-in radio. Can't go on his. Another thing is mandatory that some operators have are seat belts. It's not NARCOA mandatory. The idea is that that car derails, it may throw you off unless you're holding on for dear life. But I would rather be able to hold on than to be strapped in and that thing go down some large embankment or something, especially underwater or whatever, so I don't have seatbelts on my car. I never had any problems operating my car in all these years, knocking on wood. Oh, that's not. Okay, I'm about done with my presentation. Anybody have any questions about anything?
Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.